Sometimes the best players in the NFL draft aren't taken in the first or even the second round. A lot of the time, the most talented players are taken outside of the top 50 picks. And that's what we're going to be focusing on today, our defensive gems. Me and Nu have 5 players each who are outside our top 50 big boards who we think are going to surpass their draft position. And we did offensive gems a few weeks ago now, Nu. So go and check that out if you haven't already, and make sure you subscribe for more NFL draft content. But Nu, defensive gems, big day today.
Yeah, make sure to subscribe. Road to 1,000. Really excited about defensive gems, Dom. This is where we're really in the thick of draft season now, in draft month, and I'm just so excited. It's really ramping up.
The draft's less than 3 weeks away now. So this is why me and Nu are in the weeds here with our defensive gems. Nu's gone pretty niche. I've gone a lot less niche, I think. But then I'll kick us off then, Nu, if that's all right. Because like I said, mine aren't that niche. And I feel like if your offensive gems episode was anything to go on, we'll end up with
Holland Pierce is gaining traction, is all I'm saying.
I'm saying. You cooked with the offensive gems episode. So let's see if you can follow that up with a strong defensive gems performance. And I think I'm going to start us off very strong here with Carson Schwesinger, the linebacker from UCLA. Now, I'm kind of cheating here, Nu, and I'm actually going to cheat for quite a few of these, and that's because he wasn't in my top 50 when we did our top 50 big boards, but he will be in there now. So technically, he is a gem because he wasn't in the top 50, but I am slightly cheating because he is going to be when it's all said and done. And the reason why Carson Schwesinger, I think, is going to be such a great player and a defensive gem is he's going to be my LB2, ahead of Jalen Walker and behind Jihad Campbell. I'd have him as my 34th ranked player, I think, at the moment when I put him in my big board. He flies downhill. The first game I watched of him was against Minnesota, and the first play I put on was him blowing up like an outside toss run, and he just comes downhill, ducks under the block from the offensive line, tackles the running back in the backfield for a loss of a yard. He's got such a quick trigger, such great diagnosis of the play before and as it's happening. He takes on blocks really well, uses his hands nicely to combat them. He's also a really good athlete. He has that sideline to sideline range that you want your linebacker to have, and he's a surprisingly good pass rusher. Like, for me, as I've said previously, Nu, with Jihad Campbell, is that linebackers about 3 things for me, and really it's about floor, not ceiling. It's, can you make plays at or around the line of scrimmage? Can you rush the passer? And can you be a plus coverage player against running backs, tight ends, slot receivers from the slot? And for me, Schwesinger ticks all of those boxes, particularly making plays at or around the line of scrimmage and the pass rushing, because his pass rush moves and pass rush understanding is genuinely really good. I was so pleasantly surprised when I saw that on his tape. Weaknesses, though, is that Schwesinger does lack the top-end physical tools, and you can kind of see that on his tape. He's got 47th percentile wingspan. He's got 37th percentile bench press. He's not that strong. He's only 6'2", 242 pounds, so he is on the lighter side, even by these modern standards when defensive players are getting lighter and quicker. And he doesn't have a great anchor as a result, right? Not strong, not that heavy. And I've seen him quite a few times a game be put on his arse. And that's the worst place to be as a linebacker, because you can make absolutely no impact on the play if you are on the floor with an offensive lineman lying on top of you. And I question how that's going to fare in the NFL against NFL offensive linemen. He's only had 1 season as a starter. He's still kind of learning. He's still learning to identify those route patterns and reading the quarterback's eyes. And there's such a massive jump from college to linebacker in the NFL, right? The hash marks are wider. They go from 6 yards to 9 or whatever it is. The hash marks are wider in college. RPOs can only go up to a yard in college. Offensive linemen can only block up to a yard. In the NFL, they can block up to 3 yards, and they just spam that. And it's really hard when modern offenses and quarterbacks are looking to target linebackers in coverage or manipulate linebackers with fakes. So that jump is going to be really big, and the few of those weaknesses make me question how Schwesinger is going to deal with that jump. But for me, like I said, the bottom line here is that linebacker's about floor, and Schwesinger has the instincts, the athleticism, and the mentality to be a very good NFL linebacker. The ceiling is a question with all his weaknesses, but I feel pretty confident about his floor.
Yeah, Dom, so I think that's fair. I was really debating putting Schwesinger in here as well, but again, I don't think he's enough of a gem because I think he's nailed on a 2nd-round pick. Yeah. And I think it's all a good take about the linebacker class, which is it all depends on how high you have Jalen Walker as to how good you think the rest of the class is. And I personally think he's a 1st-round pick. But with Schwesinger, I think that his traits aren't elite enough. So I'm actually going with a player very similar to Schwesinger, which is Chris Poole Jr. out of Ole Miss.
Okay.
So he's a transfer to Ole Miss, previously played in the SEC, and basically what you say about Schwesinger is the exact same about Chris Poole. He's undersized, very similar build, but he's a side-to-side blitzing linebacker. Schwesinger does have better coverage ability, I must admit, and this is why Chris Poole is going to be probably a third-round pick instead of a second-round pick like Schwesinger. But he's a great blitzer. 3.5 sacks on the year, multiple. I don't have his possession numbers to hand, but I also got a pick. He's really good on the blitz. He's a great run defender. The only issue is, similar to Schwesinger, if a lineman gets on him, he's cooked. He's absolutely toast. He's got no pop in his pads. You don't hear that impact. He is a side-to-side player, east to west, not north and south. But I still think, like you said, very high floor. Maybe not the highest ceiling due to the lack of pass coverage ability, but I think he's a Schwesinger light that you can get at a better value pick.
Yeah, it's interesting that because I think with linebacker, right, there's obviously Mike, Sam, and Will, right? There's kind of like your outside linebackers and there's your middle linebackers and they're all different positions, a bit like how it is with the slot and wide receivers, right? Like you need different skill sets from them. And what I remember most about the 2015 Jags, was it 2015? Is who were their two linebackers? It was Miles Jack and another one. And I can't remember who the other one was, but basically one of them was like the hammer, the other one was like the knife. And they would, like, the bigger linebacker would be the one that would take on blocks and keep Miles Jack free. And he would then have the range to go that sideline to sideline, east to west. And so if you're in a position where you have like those heavier linebackers or, maybe even a heavier defensive line, right? It depends on your scheme where these linebackers are going to go and how valuable teams are going to have them. But I think it's like those linebackers, because it is such a massive jump, that you can get those kind of second, third round linebackers that really do play really well. And actually we find that those first round linebackers like Devin White just like flame out of the league. And yeah, you've got all the physical tools, but really linebacker is such a cerebral position. Like you need to have so much game understanding, so much game awareness that really, I think, yeah, you want the athletic guys, you want the Jihad Campbells, but also you need to have the wherewithal and the game understanding to actually play the position and not just be like lost in coverage like Devin White is, right? He can run a 4.5 or whatever, but he's terrible at the position. So,
yeah,
two linebacker shouts.
Yeah, one last thing about linebacker is I think it's unfair actually to say like, these guys are lighter because they are lighter, but I think the days of the north to south linebacker are gone. They've just evolved with the position. It's much more about QB spies, much more about zone run games, much more about coverage. So even though these guys are undersized for the typical size, I think that is where the game is going. So I actually don't have that big a problem with them being that size.
Well, I mean, exactly right. Like it's an arms race in the NFL when
be ahead of the offense.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And like really, the question is, will the pendulum start to swing the other way with defenses now being really quite light? Like, will that start to now go the other way? Will offenses like try and beef up and run up the middle? But yeah, for the time being, that's definitely where the game is now. My second gem. Again, I'm going to say I feel like a bit of a fraud here. I've really not gone very deep. But I've gone with Omar Norman-Lott, the defensive tackle from Tennessee. And that's primarily because I think he's one of the best pure pass rushers in this class. He has an 18.9% pass rush win rate. That is first among defensive tackles. That goes up to 30.8% as a pass rush win rate versus true pass set. So that's without RPOs, that's on obvious passing downs. That's third in college football. He's got really active hands. He's great at grabbing and controlling the interior offensive lineman's wrists and just using that to his advantage. He's always got low pads. He's able to refit his hands really quickly and effectively. He's got a super quick get off and just maintains that leverage he has. He's always working through the offensive lineman. He's never trying to be too pretty and going around them. He grabs their wrist, he stays low and he drives them back. And he's got a really strong bull rush, and that ability to win with power and collapse the pocket, I think is so valuable in the modern NFL. Now the weaknesses with Omar Norman-Lott is that he's not an every down defensive lineman. He averaged only 17 snaps a game at Tennessee, and we've spoken about the deep defensive line Tennessee defensive line rotation before with James Pierce Jr. They just had this crazy rotation along their defensive line. And fundamentally, Omar Norman-Lott is a third down interior defensive lineman. He's not going to be on the field for running plays. He only had 86 run defense snaps this year in college, which is super low. And he is that designated pass rusher. And as a result, he's not great in the run game. His block diagnosis isn't developed. But fundamentally, run-stuffing defensive tackles can be found 10 a penny, right? There's loads of them in free agency. You can draft one of them in day 4 of the draft if you wanted to. If you draft Omar Norman-Lott, you can watch this guy eat on 3rd down and 2nd and long, and he is going to be a drive finisher, a bit like in the mold of, say, a Alijah Huzzie, but you can take this guy on day 2 and you can feel very good about it.
I've seen some of his tape, Dom. No, I don't want to say shades of Aaron Donald, but having that defensive tackle that can rush the passer is genuinely game changing. So, what range do you think he should go in?
I think he's a firm. That's the thing. It is the question of if you already have a run-stuffing defensive tackle, you can very easily take Omar Norman-Lott and just have him as that rotational piece.
Yeah.
If you don't, though, then it's going to be, and you want him to play on run downs, you're going to probably get diminishing returns from a player with his strengths and his weaknesses. So I think probably back end of day, I think maybe a 3rd round pick, like a top 3rd round pick, a high end 3rd round pick would be. Like I said, rushing the passer is so valuable, and getting sacks is so important for defenses. It's drive killing, right? It puts the defense in the driving seat and puts the offense behind the 8 ball. So I would definitely take him with a top 3rd round pick.
Yeah, I would love that. I think that's really good for his value. But I've seen him start to really rise up boards where I don't think the value is quite there. I've seen him at like top of the 2nd. Even saw some tweets about him going in the 1st. I don't think that's true. But
no, he's not going. He's definitely not going in the 1st. I mean, like there's Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, Derek Harmon, the Ole Miss defensive tackle, Walter Nolan. Like the defensive tackle class is really deep. And I think with those other guys, you can get more out of them in terms of how many snaps they can play. And so that's why Lott is a bit of a gem, because he is going to be a designated pass rusher. But I think that's going to play.
Nice, yeah. So with my 2nd offensive gem, this guy was my number 1 ranked safety before coming into the year. It's Kevin Winston Jr., the safety out of Penn State.
Okay.
He had an amazing sophomore season and also played in his freshman year. However, junior season, all gone due to a knee injury. He's the only safety in the entire class to have an 85+ grade in both pass defense and run defense. Now, we talk about Nick Emenwari, we talk about Malachi Starks. Their versatility is actually somewhat limiting in some ways. Malachi Starks maybe more of a slot safety, whereas Nick Emenwari is more of a strong safety blitzer. Kevin Winston Jr. is the best outright safety in this class. He's a sideline to sideline. He could probably play free safety, even though I think he's probably a little bit better in the box. But he can do both. Only missed 2 tackles in his entire career. It sounds stupid to say that someone who missed an entire season with injury could be the most safe pick out of the safety class. But if he can stay healthy, this guy is a 10+ year starter in the league. His sophomore tape is genuinely amazing, Dom. I really implore you to watch it. It's such a shame that he missed this year because he played the first 2 games, but obviously, didn't really do much. And if he played this whole year, we would 100% be talking about him as a 1st round pick.
That is new. Clap him off. That is a definition of a gem there, because he's not even been on my radar. So where then, given the injury, where would you take him?
So again, I actually haven't heard much about that. When I was researching this episode, I was looking up, sometimes you hear those. Who's the Philadelphia linebacker? Georgia.
Zach Bourne?
I know, who fell a couple of years back because of a knee injury, but went to the 3rd.
Nolan Smith.
Eagles. Nolan Smith, of course, yeah. Sometimes these things are literally just scare tactics, right? Teams just take them off their job, or the second they hear, degenerative knee injury, the second they hear arthritis, these buzzwords. And that's something that I don't have the information to. So I could see him going as high as the 2nd, but I could also see him going as low as the 4th. Yeah. Which is really why it really just depends on the team doctor, which is unfortunately Paddy. We can't get him to evaluate him on today. But if I could know his health situation, I'd 100% take him as high as the 2nd round.
Yeah, we need Paddy's medical opinion on it. Our producer, our man behind the camera, Paddy. He's at work today in the hospital. But I mean, I think this safety class new is kind of almost being a bit slept on here, because you've got a safety on your top 50. Well, not your top 50, sorry, in your gems.
Yeah.
I've also got one in my gems, and that is Andrew Mukuba, the safety from Texas.
Who?
I actually think that he might be my safety too, in front of Nick Emenwari. Like, I love Mukuba and his tape. He's got crazy range. Like, I think the best range that I've seen in this class. Like, against Georgia, he had this play where he comes downhill due to the run fake, is only about 7 yards off the line of scrimmage. And then as he realizes it's a passing play and not a run play, he turns back, runs to the deep third where he almost intercepts a post to Arian Smith. Like, it was one of the most nuts plays I've seen a safety make. Like, that instincts and that athleticism is just crazy. He's got fantastic route diagnosis. He can feel those kind of deep in breakers and backside digs and make a play on the ball, or even at the catch point. He had 5 interceptions, 6 pass breakups in 2024. He's got a really fast downhill trigger both versus the run and the pass, and he's not afraid to put every single pound of weight he has behind his pads. Like, he comes down like a rocket and he is trying to hit you. He's not just trying to tackle you, he's trying to hit you. Weaknesses, though, he does have a lighter frame, right? So he has to put every single pound behind his pads. He's only 186 pounds, 14th percentile, and he's shorter, right? He's only got 8th percentile arm length. That means there's very little room for error in his arm tackles. He comes off his feet. I know he likes to put his weight behind his pads, but he comes off his feet too much, and that kind of makes it a bit of a crazy tackle, like not always going to like stick. And he's not going to be a blitzing option because he's not great at taking on those heavier offensive linemen with only being 186 pounds, and he's not great at shedding blocks. But with Mukuba, I just think he's such like a fun player, and I hate when people say that. He's so fun, But I do think that at the safety position, where we have seen kind of a lot more with the rules of the modern NFL protecting offensive players, and rightly so, I believe. I'm not one of these boomers that are like, let them hit again. But he is a really fun player to watch, and I think that he is limited with his physical traits. But if you put him as like that thumping free safety, where his coverage instincts can play and he can be protected by playing further off the line of scrimmage and won't have to take on those blocks, then I think we're getting a really nice player. But that's what I'm saying is that the safety class, like, there are some really nice players. Like, we've not even mentioned like Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, and obviously there is Nick Emanwari and there is Malachi Starks.
So like, give him a shout out.
Yeah, and your guy and my guy. So look, if you need a safety, it's a good draft to need one.
So Dom, he sounds a bit too good to be true. Why is he not being talked about? Like, you said he's a bit lighter, but is there any other downsides apart from that? Or
I don't think. I mean, look, it's safety almost a bit like any other defensive position. Is first of all very scheme dependent. Like, what do you want your safeties to do? Are you looking for a Kyle Hamilton safety that can play in the box, kind of be a pseudo linebacker in nickel defenses, and be a threat versus the run? He can't really be that with his weight, right? Like, he's going to be like, if they see him on the field and he's down in the box, they're calling a run play on him, like, and they're going to abuse that. So it is just a question of his limitations are very real, and I'm not trying to kind of avoid that. But I think his strengths mean that he is a player that I can see really kind of being one of those like 3rd round gems that you get, and everyone's like, oh my God, Andrew Mukuba is absolutely unreal. Like, he's got the ball production, he's got like the mentality, he's got the instincts and feel. Like, I love him, and that's the thing, is that I don't think enough people are talking about him. I think he will be on the fringe of my top 50 because I'm really not an Emanwari guy. Like, the more I watch of these other safeties, the more I'm kind of like, I think he's just a bit of a combine warrior. Could he be a great player? Absolutely. But I'm not infatuated by Emanwari's tape, and I think I might have been a bit guilty here of also kind of falling for the combine hype.
I tend to agree. I had him ranked at 15. I still have ranked as a first round pick, but I think we need to do a rejig at some point.
Yeah, we'll definitely do an updated board. We'll definitely do it because you know what? Actually, I'll say this for my 5th player. So who's your next gem?
So my next gem is Alijah Huzzie, cornerback out of UNC. Who? Alijah Huzzie. Scaring the Huzz. Sorry, I thought I had to say that. for our Gen Alpha listeners out there.
Scaring the Huzz.
So Alijah Huzzie was at East Tennessee State, transferred to UNC this year. A good friend of mine goes to UNC, Ed Fairhurst, give him a shout out. So I often turn on the UNC games like I do with Maryland, and this guy pops out on film. 5'10", 195 pounds, so he's definitely smaller, going to be a nickel or a slot corner at the next level. But he had 8 pass defenses in the ACC, which is the most in the conference. Only 1 pick, allowed less than 50% completion rate when targeted, 22 receptions out of 48 targets. I think he really does project well as someone who can actually start in the NFL. He's got over 1,600 college snaps. Some of that at a lower level, but you really see that experience on film. His route recognition, I genuinely believe, is top tier. The only issue is his long speed. He ran a 4.55 at the combine, and I think he plays faster than that. Because the reason why he's on this list is because one of the games I watched this year for UNC, he scored a punt return and he looks absolutely rapid on it. But it's true, he's a special teams contributor as well. So he's someone that is undersized, and I'm not saying that he should go in the second round. I'm saying that his value in the third or the fourth, maybe in the fifth, I think is very good because he's someone who can contribute straight away. I don't think he's going to be an all pro, but he can contribute on special teams and he could be a day one starter at slot corner, which for a fourth, fifth round pick, I think is tremendous value.
I like that shout. Also, that was fun. I like that. Scaring the Huzz. But so do you think then, Nu, that he'll be like a fourth round kind of like special team contributor who has potential to like be a defensive starter at some point?
Yes, I think about Drew Phillips went to the Giants this year. Who was able to get consistent minutes. He's even in the Defensive Rookie of the Year shout because he just played every snap and played okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I can see him having, a classic 70 PFF grade in his rookie year, targeted quite a lot, give up a few times. But, you are a cheap, most importantly, starter on a cheap cog in a good defense is what I think he can be, which I think for a fifth round pick is amazing value.
Fair enough. Okay, all right. You're cooking, you're cooking. And again, I've gone conservative. I feel bad, but I'm glad you're picking. You're more in the weeds than I am.
More out there.
Yeah, you've gone down one track, I've gone down another. So we're covering a lot of players here, which is good. I'm going with Braydn Swinson, the edge from LSU, as my fourth defensive gem. This guy had insane production this year. 60 pressures, that's sixth in the country. A 32.2% pass rush win rate versus true pass sets, that's also sixth. He's a really good power rusher, which, as we know with Jared Verse, no, he's not as good as Jared Verse. He's not going to go in the first and be one of the most insane rookie defensive seasons ever. But we know that a power rush profile has a very strong projection to the NFL. I think he is kind of this year's Jared Verse light, if you will, in that sense. Like, power is the move that is used the most by NFL defensive linemen, and you can easily then add other pass rush moves off the back of that. Push, pull, speed to power. And he's got a really explosive first step, which is absolutely fantastic. You've got an explosive first step and you've got a good power profile. That's going to play. That is simply going to play at any level. And he has a really good speed to power move. He's got great pound for pound strength. He's not the biggest. He doesn't have that same physical profile as Jared Verse, but he does kind of punch above his weight in that respect. Now, he does lack bend around the edge and he has tight hips. He's not going to flatten the path to the quarterback very well. He's not going to be able to beat tackles around the edge. And his combine measurements in terms of the 3 cone and the short shuttle back that up, right? He doesn't really have that ability. And he's a late breakout, which scares me a little bit. He's a fifth year player, and it does scare me when he's won with power, when he is essentially a man playing against boys, if you will, at college. And so that concerns me. But fundamentally, with the explosiveness, with the first step, and with the power, I think it gives him a really high floor as a pass rusher. And I'm seeing Braydn Swinson by some people being spoken about as kind of like as someone that could be taken with a late first round pick. Now, I don't think he will be, and I don't think he should be, but I think definitely a second round pick 100%. And again, so I've not really gone with the gems like you have. But Braydn Swinson is definitely not a big name, which I think would class him as a gem, right? He's not an Abdul Carter, a James Pierce Jr., a Nick Scourton, a Shamar Stewart. But I think he's going to be really good, and he's someone that needs to be on more people's radar because I think he's going to hit the ground running in ways which I think that maybe James Pierce Jr., with how he wins, isn't going to do quite as well or quite as immediately as Braydn Swinson with that power profile.
So what do you think Braydn Swinson's ceiling is in the NFL? Do you think he can be an all-pro, Pro Bowl level edge rusher?
See, that's the thing, is that I don't think Swinson has that higher ceiling given his limitations with his bend and his he's not really going to win in other ways barring his power. So he's never going to be a guy, right? He's not going to be a dude. I think James Pierce Jr., if he puts it all together, could be like a Brian Burns. I think that if a Michael Williams or a Shamar Stewart with their athletic and physical profiles put it together, they can be an edge one. I don't think Swinson will ever be an edge one, which is why I think that he shouldn't really go in the first round, because I think if you're drafting an edge in the first round, you want that potential. But it's more about his floor than his ceiling for me. Braydn Swinson as an edge too, he's going to play in the league for 5 years minimum, and he's going to be a damn good player when he's doing so. I think he's going to be someone that will get that contract with his second contract with his team. Sorry, and we'll just produce 60 pressures this year. That's nothing to shake a stick at, and he's not doing it in the Mountain West or whatever. He's doing it for LSU in the SEC. So look, I think it's more about floor with Swinson than it is about ceiling.
Well, so that's sort of the opposite of my last defensive gem here. Shout out to all my Central Arkansas Bears fans out there. David Walker, the edge out of Central Arkansas.
Okay.
Similar to Holland Pierce, I saw this guy on Twitter and I thought he was playing, I thought the film was sped up. No, what I would say about David Walker is it looks like he's playing FIFA with sliders on. He's so much faster and so much more powerful than everyone else on the field. So this year alone, he had a 94.6 PFF pass rush grade with 12 sacks. He has an insane bend, insane speed, and insane get-off. The play that really caught my eye, I think it was against California A&M Commerce, I believe, so big school.
Yeah, big name.
And he genuinely chases down the running back step for step 50 yards down the field and does a from the behind tackle. Every single play, he absolutely ruins these guys. Admittedly, he's playing against, I don't even know what division Central Arkansas are in, but FCS. Maybe the Big Sky. Let's go with that.
Just choose one of them. Just choose
one of them.
It's not Power 4, so no one cares.
Yeah, exactly. And he does dominate. He dominates every single play. That is the most important thing when you're going up against lower level competition. He dominates play in, play out. Now, the biggest weakness is for him, he's 6'2". I think he's probably more like 6'1". So, Dom, that's not that much taller than me or you. And I don't think I'm an
NFL gang.
Promise, I'm 6'4". And that you don't see many NFL edge rushers with that. You don't. But he is refined. He's good with his hands. He's got great bend. And at that speed, and that size, rather, he's going to be a situational pass rusher, right? His biggest weakness is probably run defense. He's not that strong a tackler, but he can rush the passer really well. So he is similar to Norman-Lott, like you said, out of Tennessee. He can be a specialty pass rusher on 3rd and long, which can generate value, especially as a day 2, day 3 pick. I love David Walker. I'm so high on this guy. And I just love it when people from small schools really show out. For me, he's like a poor man's Shamar Stewart. If Shamar Stewart played in the FCS, he would put up David Walker numbers.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's the thing is that, like, the league will find you, right? It doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, you got Charles Cross from William & Mary. Is it Charles? It's not Charles Cross.
Charles Cross was when
he's a Seahawks player. But anyway, there's that offensive tackle from William & Mary. There's Easton Chisholm from Eastern Michigan.
Eastern Michigan. No, I thought the same uni as
same uni as Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, like Western Washington or something like that.
Yeah, Washington State Eagles or something. I don't know. Either way, the league's going to find you. If you have the talent, you're going to make it. And so then, where do you think he's going to go? Do you think it's going to be day 2 or day 3?
I really hope it's day 3 because I would love it if obviously we're going to try to watch every pick we can, but obviously in day 3 it gets a bit harder because there's just so many picks.
Man's got other stuff to do.
Exactly. So I want it to be like a day 3 pick because I want to be like, I watched him, I saw his tape, I know who he is when everyone's sort of going who on draft day. So he's probably the biggest my guy in this entire draft because I'm rooting for him so hard.
I rate that, and that's the thing. So this brings me nicely on to my fifth and final defensive gem. Is that I've got some feedback, Nick. Not necessarily criticism, more critiques, more.
Well, even better if.
Yeah. What's it called? Yeah. Even better ifs.
Yeah.
Basically, I've been called, in not so many words, a coward by some people. That my draft board is too kind of based on what everyone else has. It's not actually, but it is very much in line with that, I will admit. And I did a video previously, which is my favorite players in the NFL draft. And go and check that out. Make sure you subscribe for more NFL draft content. And I got some feedback in there. And it was Trayvon Henderson, it was Tyler Warren, it was players like that. And they are my favorite players. Like Trayvon Henderson especially is my favorite player. But someone said, these are quite safe. These are quite safe. And so what I need to do now is I'm going to refine my draft takes and really kind of stick to what I believe in here. And you've done that really nicely with your Central Arkansas player. So I rate that. And I need to take a leaf out of your book. So I'm going to, with my 5th player, I'm going to be quite bold here. And I'm going to put him in my top 50. And that is Jacob Parrish, the cornerback from Kansas State. Now, this guy is those small dogs that bark all the time.
Yappy little terriers.
Yeah, Jacob Parrish is a terrier, right? This guy is going to go after it. He is a super aggressive press man corner. He can upset the wide receivers at the line of scrimmage. He attacks wide receivers, like a defensive tackle attacking a guard. Like he's getting in their pants, and he's not just a bit like Siobhan Revell can get in there and can kind of upset the timing and the tempo, but Parrish is trying to genuinely push them back 2-3 yards. It's not just getting in there and making physical. It's literally about pushing them, about resetting the line of scrimmage. He's super accurate with that two-handed punch. He rarely ever misses. He's always landing it right in the wide receiver's chest. He's often also, which I think is super interesting, I don't know if this is what he's allowed to do at Kansas State or what they wanted him to do, but he's often starts at 5, 6, 7 yards off. And when the wide receiver's looking at the ball for the snap, he then comes downhill. And so that makes for, and with that power that he has behind that punch, the wide receivers are completely thrown off. He can, also when he's playing off coverage, he's still super aggressive. He's still trying to upset the wide receiver, get his hands in there, be really aggressive. He's got a great match and mirror ability. He can stay in the hip pockets on deep routes. He's got the lateral agility to mirror double moves deeper down the field, and he can suffocate those shallow routes lower down the field. Now he's got a lot of fight in him. Right, it's not about the size of the dog in the fight; it's about the size of fighting the dog. He is only 5'9". Right, we stand our short kings, 8th percentile, and he's only 100, and he's only 191 pounds. That's 27th percentile. Like bigger wide receivers can effectively match his physicality and push off and disengage from that contact. Obviously, with his play style, he's a bit grabby. 7 penalties. That's going to be a bit harder in the NFL when we see these younger corners, these younger aggressive corners, really get penalised for holding penalties. And he's smaller with a smaller wingspan, right? He's 5'9", 191 pounds. He's not a pterodactyl. He's not Carl Hamilton. He's not Siobhan Revell or someone like that. Like, he is smaller with a smaller wingspan. That does limit his room for error. And he does also lack the ideal makeup speed. So if he loses, he's going to lose badly. And corner is a volatile position when you're going up against the best of the best in the NFL. So he is a very high-risk, high-reward player. But it's a play style that I love. And I think he can play inside or outside with his skill set. I think he will probably, for most teams, project as a nickel corner, a slot cornerback. But I think he can play outside, and I think he'll compete for a starting role. And I just kind of love the play style. I love the aggressiveness. I love the fight in him. And I think he's gonna compete for a starting role now.
So I must admit, I haven't watched this film personally. I have heard about him. But do you not think that corner as a position, it sort of only matters how many times you get beat? Almost a bit like tackle. If you go up 2 long touchdowns a game, it doesn't matter if you shut him down for the whole game. If you're overcommitting every play, do you think that's something that needs to be coached out of him, or something that you should be?
I actually don't think so. I completely get where you're coming from, and I do agree. Right, corner is a really volatile position, and it's about not losing. It also does depend what schemes you run. Right, if you play quarters or something with cover 3 where the corners are playing off coverage, then things are going to be underneath them, and it's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts, right? You can kind of pick your poison with how you want your corners to play. The reason why I think that's not so much of a concern is because when you're as aggressive in press coverage as you are with Parrish, if a quarterback in the NFL looks over, because you've got fractions of a second, if he looks over and his number one receiver is getting bodied at the line of scrimmage, it doesn't matter if he wins later for the most part, he's coming off that read. So really, there is the risk of him getting really badly beat. But fundamentally, I think with the window that you have in the NFL to determine if you're going to throw the ball to that player or not as a quarterback, it's going to work a little bit, or not a little bit, quite a lot. Is it possible that he gets back? Absolutely, 100%. And he is a volatile player at a volatile position, so it could make for a disaster. So maybe like a Trayvon Diggs-esque,
Yeah.
Okay, he might make a few plays, but then if he's getting burnt for 100 yards a game, what does it matter? But I don't think it will be that extreme. And I think in the nickel where he'll probably start to begin with, I think that can be kind of covered for, right, when you've got kind of more players in the middle of the defensive formation and it's kind of all a bit more muddied. I think he's a player that will be the definition of a gem, someone that people might not know about and they might know the name, but they haven't watched the tape. And when he gets drafted in, say, 3rd, 4th round, you're getting a good player with that value.
Yeah, but so he is going to be a top 50 player for you?
I think he is. I need to be braver here. And the thing is what I struggle with, and we'll end it after this thought, is am I going off like value and potential, or am I going off floor? Am I going off ceiling? And what I struggle with the big board is kind of working out, I think Shedeur Sanders is a better player right now, but I think that maybe someone like Jackson Dart could be better. So should I have Dart over Sanders? And should it be consistent for every player? That's what I've struggled with. And I think really I just need to go for what I see. Do I see talent? Do I see potential? Do I see a great player already? And kind of limit it to that. Because if I do, then Parrish, I think, would sneak into the top 50.
Yeah, trust your instincts. I'm a bit of a caveman with my analysis, I must admit. It's not very nuanced. If I think players good, I think they're good. And sometimes that maybe leads me to overrate players. But I think a lot of the time, draft prospects on the whole can be overcomplicated and almost be like over-intellectualized. Like, if you're not good at rushing the passer, you're not going to be a good pass rusher.
Yeah.
Yet somehow people like are able to, say these buzzwords, say these traits. And in reality, if you're not good, you're not going to be good. So I have no issue with backing talent.
Yeah, and if I'm backing talent, then Parrish is definitely in there. But like we say, we're going to do an updated top 50 big board.
Sure.
We're going to be coming at you with predictive mock drafts, with what we would do mock drafts, with more draft content. So make sure you subscribe for all of that. But I've been your host, Dom Corbs. That's my co-host, Nick Corbs. We've been Corbs NFL. We'll see you on the next one.
See ya.